meal with your loved ones. So feel free to just tune me out if you need to. But I wanted to say that the idea is that indigenous peoples were these half-naked nomads running around the forest without much organization or civilization. This is a very socially biased and politically biased interpretation of history and herstory, because in reality, indigenous peoples managed this land very effectively, and they populated the land very densely. And having gone to Stanford University for my undergrad and studying anthropology and graduating with honors and all the fancy things, you know, I definitely got an insight into that world of Western anthropology and Western archaeology, and how people believe that indigenous peoples were not sophisticated, were not advanced, were not intelligent. And this is the greatest lie that has ever been told on this land. You know, some people call this land America, but this is coming from Amerigo Vespucci, who was a pirate looking for slaves and gold. And so we say, do not call this land America. We say, call it Turtle Island is our alternative. This comes from an Anishinaabe creation story in which this land was created from a turtle's back by a sky woman. And so if you want to do your small part in really referring to this land in the right way, you can say Turtle Island instead of America. And you could say you're on occupied Kalupuya territory instead of saying I live in Corvallis. Next time say, oh yeah, I live in occupied Kalapuya territory. That's a funner way to say it, right? So never forget where this land came from. But anyways, this idea that indigenous peoples were savages, this idea that indigenous peoples were backward or unsophisticated, is the greatest lie that has ever been told on Turtle Island. Because the truth is that we had massive civilizations. And the archaeologists say, well, where's the evidence? If there was hundreds of thousands of people living in this area, where's the evidence? They don't understand that we tried very hard not to make marks on the earth. Because if you made a mark on the earth, it meant you did something disrespectful. So they say, well, there's no marks on the earth. That's the supposition, that if there was many people on this land, that there would be marks on the earth that we could see today. But there are none, are there? Because we learned through trial and error, we learned the hard way that you should not make marks on the earth. But there is one thing we did leave in our wake. There is some evidence we left which indicated our presence in the area, and that mark was biodiversity. We were and still are incredibly intelligent about ecology and regenerative harvesting practices and regenerative habitat conservation practices. And so you will find that biodiversity always matches up with indigenous communities. And you will find that linguistic diversity hotspots around the world where indigenous languages are thriving, there too is biodiverse hotspots where there is a lot of healthy ecosystems. And so that was one evidence we left in our wake. And so it is very important to not write off indigenous peoples as half-naked nomads running around the forest, hunter-gatherers. We did not plant gardens, we planted forests. It has been understood now that the Amazon rainforest is not just something that happened by chance, but actually indigenous peoples planted that forest. And the terra preta soil that they generated over many tens of thousands of years of living there is what formed the basis, the soil basis for that forest to thrive. And when I went to Peru recently, I saw that they had many varieties of fruits, probably 50 different fruits that I could choose from to make a juice. And this is the type of diversity that our indigenous communities had and still have. And so thank you for doing your part to honor the food systems of indigenous peoples, because food as we know it and water as we know it today will not be available for our grandchildren the way it is today. As American culture, we rely on the monoculturalization of everything. Our agricultural fields are just one type of plant. Our animal, we pretty much only eat 3 types of animals ever. We used to eat many types of animals. So this flattening of diversity, this monoculturalization is what is harming our planet right now. And our antibiotics that we use to sustain our food system is running out of ways to improve. We are trying to improve things that cannot be improved upon anymore. And so what seems like this really strong, impervious American system is actually incredibly vulnerable, incredibly precarious, and incredibly delicate. And what we're seeing in Johannesburg, South Africa, or Cape Town rather, with the running out of water is just a glimpse of what we will be seeing in many places around the world. And America is not immune to or exempt to the laws of nature. And in this way, we will be turning back to indigenous peoples, looking for these answers. And so us as indigenous peoples, we must be ready. We must be ready to help the world in its time of need. So as you're studying here in college, remember to not lose sight of your cultures and your traditions. All the libraries in Stanford, all the professors in Stanford, all the computers could not prepare me to speak my language. Think about that for a second. The fanciest school in the country could not prepare me to speak my own language when I went back home to the desert and I heard my grandmother speaking. I could not understand her. So I'm very honored to give this small message as indigenous peoples to remember your culture. Do not compromise your cultural knowledge just to get a degree, because the real Harvard and the real professor is grandma back home. She's the one who has endangered knowledge that you can't find anywhere else in the world. So don't ever forget grandma, don't ever forget grandpa. They have a lot of knowledge to share. All right, I'll do another song. This song is called All Nations Rise, and I wrote it to inspire indigenous peoples. And when I say indigenous peoples, I don't just refer to Native Americans, because as Europeans we are also indigenous to a land, and our culture was also destroyed by the Roman expansion, by the Inquisition. Did you know in the 1920s, if you were caught speaking Welsh in school, they would tie a block of wood around your neck that had the letters WN written on it, and this stood for Welsh not, and it was designed to humiliate you and stop you from speaking the Welsh language. And the only way you could get this block of wood off your neck is if you caught another kid speaking Welsh. So this is how European language, indigenous cultures have also been wiped out. So when I say indigenous peoples, I'm not just talking about indigenous Turtle Islanders. I'm talking about indigenous peoples the world over, whose medicine has been forced into hiding. And so with forgiveness, with love, with kindness, with responding to atrocity, with patience, love, and forgiveness, we can transmute all of these intergenerational cycles, and we can create a beautiful reality for the future generations. Israel is showing us now that if you do not forgive your oppressor, you can become the oppressor. Gaza Strip is nothing less than a concentration camp. And is it just coincidence that people who went through concentration camps are now putting people in concentration camps? I don't think it's coincidence. So we must forgive, we must love, or we will become our own oppressor and oppress others. We must remember that this is not right, and to not play into the zero-sum game. And so this song is a song of forgiveness as well, that we can love in the face of atrocity and respond to all of these hardships in our planet with prayer, with faith, with kindness, with love, with the open heart, with the open hand, and help each other out. And unite across races, unite across religions, unite across languages, and unite across genders to come together as one family, so that we can try and face these obstacles that our generation is being tasked with in an effective manner. So when I say indigenous peoples, that's what I'm talking about, every single one of us. Thanks for letting me preach at you for 30 minutes here. I love to blab, so I thank you for letting me blab at you. Okay, here we go. Indigenous people, Shine your light, we are equal, yeah, yeah. I remember the days when our prayers were illegal. I remember the days when being Indian was lethal, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had a rough past, but get ready for the sequel. Oh. Get ready for the glorious comeback of our people. Oh, yeah. Rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I can feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I can hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. All nations rise. Rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. With forgiveness as my bow and my prayers as my arrows, pull it back and let it go. I watch them fly like sparrows. Have hope, have hope. With compassion as my shield and faith down to my marrow, I will walk the pollen path even when it gets narrow. Yeah, yeah. Resurrect. Yes, you can bet that we seen the single mama raising children on the rest. We seen domestic violence tear apart what we have left. We seen the alcohol take it all and leave us dead. We seen the children take their lives when they can't take the dread anymore. No, we can't take the dread anymore. Or no, I won't take the dread anymore, 'cause I can't take the dread anymore. Yes, it's a war, but we seen it all before, and now we know we can change it, 'cause that's why we were born. We know we are the ones that we have been waiting for. Yes, we are the ones that grandma has been praying for. So rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I can feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I can hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. Pueblo hermoso, levántanse, es nuestro tiempo. No tienes que esconderte más, porque ahorita es nuestro tiempo. This next verse is in Spanish to honor all the indigenous peoples south of this imaginary border that has divided a continent that was once very, very much connected. Mujer indígena, tú eres tan sagrada y traigas medicina de tu suelo todavía, a pesar del abuso de tu cuerpo y tu tierra. Yo respeto tus ancestros y la suya cultura, hombre indígena. Tú eres honorable y yo veo la fuerza que todavía sobrevive a pesar del abuso de tu raza venerable. Yo respeto tus ritos, tus danzas, tus padres, guerreros del amor y guerreros de la paz. Sí, no vamos a escondernos más. We are warriors of love, we are warriors of peace, and we will not hide ourselves anymore. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. Yeah. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. I will say that I have a performance tonight at the Memorial Union Ballroom at 6:45, and all of the proceeds are going to be donated to the of the CD sales and the book sales. I think it's a free event. Will be donated to the Badote Language Learning Center, which is a full immersion kindergarten, primary school, and middle school in Minneapolis, Minnesota. and they teach the Anishinaabe and Dakota languages each and every day to those children. So this latest tour has all been raising funds for these groups. And I also have my CDs here if you wanted to donate to the school now. They're like 10 to 20 sliding scale, and 100% of the profits will go to Badote. And just the last thing I'll say is that, at Standing Rock, you had 10 or so people standing around a sacred fire at Sacred Stone Camp in about 2 years ago, and they were wondering what to do, and they were facing a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they were just 10 people standing around a fire, and nobody knew what Standing Rock was, and they had the audacity to put some tobacco in the fire and ask for their water to be protected. And I think that's a story to all of us, that we must try, and that we might not succeed, but the ancestors are not asking us to be perfect, they're just asking us to try. So in what ways can each of us try to make our planet a better place? There's so many ways to serve Creator right now. There's so many issues. There's so many ways that you can help those around you, protect your waters, protect the children, protect the women, protect the men, protect the elders, protect the marginalized. And so what Standing Rock taught me was to try, even in the face of all odds, because you never know. If you put your tobacco in the fire and pray for a way to help, you might start a global movement like they did. And whether we start global movements or community movements, they are all beautiful. And so I would just encourage all of you to try each and every day in what ways you can to make the world a better place, because that's why we were sent here at this very challenging time. So I'll be right inside, right by the door, with CDs and also my new book that came out, which is a poetic rendition of the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, to sign if anyone wants those. Anyways, I'll stop now. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.